In this video, we will discuss estimation. Lots of times when we estimate, we round. Remember, if we're rounding, if the number you're rounding to is followed by a number 5 or greater, you're going to round up. And if the number you're rounding to is followed by 4 or smaller, you keep it the same. So in this example, 3,567, I want to round it to the nearest hundred. This is the hundreds place, means I look here at the 6, and since that's greater than 5, I'm going to change that 5 to a 6. 3,567 is closer to 3,600 than 3,500. And then for the next example, I want to round to the nearest 10,000. So 41,433, it's followed by a 1, so that 4 is going to stay the same, and everything else is replaced with zeros. Here I can use rounding to help me estimate sums and differences. I want to round to the nearest 100 here. 3's in the hundreds place in this problem, 2's in the hundreds place here. I see a 5, so this 3 increases to a 4, so I've got 400 plus 2 followed by a 0, it's going to stay the same. 400 plus 200, my estimate is about 600. Here I'm going to round to the nearest 10. So the 0's in the 10 and the 3's in the 10s. 308 followed by an 8, this is going to round to 310. Subtracted by 234.8, that's going to round to 230 because the 3 is followed by a 4. 310 minus 230 is going to give me 80. So about 80 is my estimate here. There's also a way to estimate sums called clustering, and we use this when the numbers we're adding are all close to the same value. This is not rounding though, okay? It's just if they're all close, about the same value, we can use clustering. So we just change each number to the same value and add. So in this first example, 4.42, 5.2, 5.55, I say, they're all close to 5, even though 4.42 and 5.55 wouldn't round to 5, but they're all sort of close to it. So my estimate is going to be about 15. Then in this next example, I see a bunch of numbers in the mid-20s here, and I look at them and I say, well, maybe they're all about 25. So I'm going to round all of these to 25 and add them up. I'm going to say, well, this sum is going to be about 125. And then when I estimate products, when I'm multiplying, I want to use the greatest place. So I am going to round each factor here to its greatest place value, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same one in each one. And then I'm just going to multiply those rounded numbers. So for instance, if I have 288.302, the hundreds is the greatest place, so I'm just going to round this to 300. 7.105, the 7 is the greatest place, so I'm going to round this to the ones place, and 7.1 closest to 7. And then this is easy to multiply mentally. 7 times 3 is 21, followed by the 2 zeros. So my estimate is 2,100. Here the thousands is the greatest place. 3,705 is going to round to 4,000. And here the hundreds is the greatest place. That's going to round to 200. Okay, so I've got 4,000 times 200. 4 times 2 is 8, and it's going to be followed by 5 zeros. So I have 800,000. And finally, the last way we want to look at estimating is with quotients. We use something called compatible numbers. They're numbers that are easy to divide mentally. And again, this is not rounding. The way this works is I look at 38.8 and 1.79. I might say to myself, oh, well, this is close to 2. And 38.8, well, it's close to 39, but if I make it 38, I can easily divide 38 divided by 2 and get 19. 85.8 divided by 17.79. Again, I look at this 17.79 and say, close to 20. And 85.8, well, I could say, it's sort of close to 80. And I'll get 4 as my estimate there. And then 337.12 divided by 52.09. I'll look at this and say, okay, well, this is close to 50. what works with 50 that's close to 337? How about 350, right? And 50 will go into 350 7 times. And that is compatible numbers. All right, let's practice these on your own and then hit play and we can go through them. So if I want to round this to the tens place, this becomes 680. This one becomes 340. 680 minus 340 is going to give me 340. Here, 422 is going to round to 420. 198, that's going to actually round to 200. I'm going to add these two together, so I'm going to get 620. These numbers here, they all cluster, I'd say, around 35. So it's going to be all, these numbers here all cluster around 35. So I'm going to cluster them there at 35. And if I have 4 35s, that's about 140. All right, for these next examples here, I'm going to round to the greatest place when I'm multiplying here. So this is going to be 30 times 191 is going to round to 200. 30 times 200 is 6,000. This is going to round to 7, and 57 is going to round to 60, and that's going to be equal to 420. And then I want to use compatible numbers here. And look at the divisor, make that 80. 633, what works with 80? That's close to 633. 640. And so 640 divided by 80 is 8. And finally, 9.4. I could keep that at 9 because I see that 1733. I can make that 1800 divided by 9. And that is going to give me about 200. And that's how we estimate.